So if you've listened to me teach at the holidays, you know that one of the traditions that I've had for a very long time is what I like to do periodically is teach about a famous or a popular Christmas movie that many of you have watched or seen, and then I like to draw spiritual principles out of those things. Because I believe that the greatest needs of our heart are reflected in our music and our art and our movies and our TV shows, and that there are principles that we can learn when we look at what's going on in our world and apply it to the Bible. So I think that's really important. Ultimately, the goal is that you would learn to have that kind of discernment in what you're watching and listening to as well. And so I think there's a lot of value in doing this. So the movie I chose this year is brand new and a good chance that many of you have never seen it. It was only released in 2019 by Netflix, and it's a movie called Klaus. If you haven't watched this yet, I am really asking you to carve out a little time in your busy schedule and sit down and watch the movie Klaus. So it is now one of my all-time favorite Christmas movies. For those of you who have never seen it, I'm going to give away some of it, but I'm not going to spoil all of it, okay? So for those of you who have never seen it, it's still going to be worth watching after this. So it's the story of this man. His name is Jesper. Now, Jesper is a spoiled young man. His dad is powerful and rich in the nation in which they live, and so Jesper grows up with caviar and personal servants and silk sheets and never has to do a day's work. Now, his dad doesn't like that. So his dad is always trying to get him to take responsibility and be a man and get a job. And so finally his dad gets him into the postal academy to train him to be a postman. And this is set, probably around the 18 or 1900s, so it's a while ago. And so he's training to be a postman. Of course, he doesn't want to be a postman because that means he's got to work and he's got to leave his silk sheet. So he fails miserably in all of the training events. Mail sorting, throws them on the ground. Carrying breakable packages, drops them and kicks them down the stairs. Worst ever. So because he's going to flame out on purpose so he can go back to his life of luxury. And so finally his dad calls him into the office and after the training period is over, and of course he's failed. And so Jesper thinks, now I get to go back, right? You're still serving the same caviar at home, right? So that's what he thinks is about to happen. But his dad has a different plan for him. His dad says, you think I'm going to let you fail on purpose and then just let you come home? No. Congratulations, you are now a postman. And I'm assigning you to the remote village of Smeerensburg. And Smeerensburg is just like it sounds. It is as far north as you can possibly go. It is a remote island, and it's a fishing village. And he says, you have 1 year. In 1 year, you have to have 6,000 stamped letters come through this post office, or I'm cutting you off. No more money, no more luxury, no more anything. 1 year to go. So, needless to say, Jesper isn't too happy about this, but now he's motivated because he's got to get those 6,000 letters in 1 year, else he has no money. And so off he goes to the remote village, and it is a disaster when he gets there. The town is a rundown fishing village on a remote island. It's winter all the time. And to make matters worse, he arrives in the middle of a generations-old feud between these two families. The Crumbs and the Ellenbows. They have been fighting each other for hundreds of years. And they fight all the time. All the time. When he arrives, rings a bell, fight. It is non-stop fighting and conflict. And then, to make matters worse, they take him to the post office, and this is the post office. There are no letters. In the mail holders are chickens. So, because there's just nothing. And he's horrified to discover that there are no letters being passed through the post office. 0. And he has 1 year to get 6,000 in this remote village, or he loses everything. And what happens next is both hilarious and incredibly touching. It is a powerful, powerful story, and it illustrates so many great, great Christian truths that I wanted to talk to you about it today. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to get through all the notes I have, so I pushed the part of it to Christmas Eve. So we're going to talk about part of it today, and we're going to finish it on Christmas Eve. So I want to ask you to open your program, take out the notes. We're going to just talk about these life lessons from the movie Klaus. And welcome to those of you who are watching on YouTube. So glad you've tuned in today. You have these notes. And to those of you who are watching on our website, PennyelChurchLife.com, so glad you're there as well. You have the notes. You can follow along. And we're skipping right down to point number 2. So I know some of you just hate it when I do this. But sorry, I got no time. So we're gonna push point number 1. We'll hear on Christmas Eve. But we're starting with point number 2. And this is just so important for you to get. And it's so relevant in our life right now. The reality is, here's what you learn when you watch this movie. It illustrates one of the most important spiritual truths we believe as followers of Jesus, is that you'll find your greatest joy in life only when you start serving. You will find your greatest joy in life only when you start serving. And this is so powerfully illustrated in the movie. So in the movie, there are no letters. Nobody's mailing anything. He's got 1 year, so he's got to find a way to get people to start mailing letters. So he goes from house to house, talking to all the people, trying to get anyone to stop fighting with their neighbor long enough to mail a letter, and nobody will. He fails at every attempt he has in some pretty funny ways, and then finally one day he's in the village and he finds this picture, and it's a little bit hard to see. I know this is the only good picture I could find of it, and it's a boy living in his house, and the window where his bedroom has bars on it, and he's looking at this picture, and all of a sudden he hears the boy calling to him. This picture has blown out of the boy's window. And so the boy calls to him from that upstairs window and says, "Hey, mister, can I have my picture back?" And all of a sudden, Jasper's like, "Well, I'm a mailman, I can't give it to you. But if you'll give me a penny, I'll mail it back to you." And so he starts negotiating with the boy up in the window to get a penny so he can have his first stamped letter. And then it's not going good. Kid doesn't understand what this even means. And then it gets even worse for Jasper when the dad shows up with the dogs and sicks the dogs on him. So he runs away with the boy's letter. And then he has nowhere left to go in the whole village. He's talked to every single person. There's nobody who wants to mail a letter. And he's about to give up in failure, and he notices this one little spot on the map of the island, way up in the northeastern corner of the island, and it's one shack that he hasn't been to, and it's the home of the woodcutter, and his name is Klaus. Klaus is this enormous man who lives in isolation way up in the middle of nowhere. Jasper has no choice. He's got to find somebody to start sending letters, and so he travels all the way up to this remote part of the island to talk to Klaus, to see if he can talk him into starting to send letters. And they have a funny incident. Jasper's terrified of him, thinks he's about to die, and takes off running and leaves behind the child's letter. And when Klaus sees that picture of that boy behind the bars, something moves inside of his heart. Klaus, we find out later, is also a toy maker. And so he looks at the boy, and he is really moved, and so he goes into town, and he finds Jasper, and he has a package for Jasper, and he makes Jasper come with him to deliver a package. He shows the picture of the boy, and he says, "Where is this?" And Jasper takes him to the home, and then Klaus hands him the package and says, "You're a postman, right? Go deliver your package." And so Jasper gets inside the house and leaves the package, and Klaus stands outside the window when the little boy finds the package and opens it up. And the joy on the boy's face at receiving this unexpected present transforms Klaus. You can see it on his face. Watching a child play with a toy that he's made impacts him so much. He knows that he's just encountered something that really is moving his heart. So the next day, and Jasper runs away and leaves the picture. So the boy comes out and finds the picture, and he also sees Klaus through the window, and so he puts 2 and 2 together, and he's like, "Oh, that mailman said if I mail this if I put this in the mail, then I can have it back." And so he thinks that what happened is his letter got mailed to Klaus, and because of that, Klaus brought him a toy. So he tells 3 of his cousins the next morning, and Jasper at the post office is awakened early in the morning by 3 little kids who have letters. Because if a letter is getting me a new toy, then I am writing a letter. And so 3 children, all of a sudden he gets it. I'll go after the children. The children will get me what I want, which is out of here. And so he starts teaching all the kids of the village how to write letters, because if you put it on, you bring me the penny and I'll stamp it and it'll go. Klaus will bring you a toy. And so that's how all of this begins. But something changes along the way as every night he and Klaus go out and deliver all the toys at night. Something begins to really change in the story, and it is not unexpected if you start serving like this every single night, serving all these kids. Two things happen. First, he really develops a close connection to Klaus, and then the second thing that happens is as they watch the children play with the toys, something starts to move in their heart. And Jesper all of a sudden stops thinking about himself. For the first time in his life, he's actually thinking about others and how meaningful it is to spend your life doing something for someone other than yourself. And he experiences joy for the first time. And in that realization, we have our first major spiritual truth of this movie. The people who live with the greatest joy in this world are the people who make themselves voluntarily into servants. The people who experience the greatest joy in the movie are people who are serving, and just like in real life, the people who experience the greatest joy in this world are people who serve. I've told you for years that there are multiple levels of serving that you can be at. The reality is there are a lot of Christians who live at this level. They don't serve. They don't think about serving others. They don't think about any kind of serving plan that God might have for them in this world. And this is where, unfortunately, that first church that I pastored way back in the early 90s in Madison that no longer exists, part of what was so unhealthy was they never served. They didn't think about serving. It wasn't a conversation with them. They came, they attended a service, and then they went home and lived any way they wanted. And it was destructive to them spiritually because it's not what God made us to be. When God invites us into his family, he's inviting us in with the purpose of using us as servants in this world. So if you stay at this level, your spiritual life will be stagnant. It'll be empty. God will be just a word in your vocabulary. You won't need God. You won't pray to God with any kind of passion or energy, and you won't experience God because there is no God at the no serving level. So then Christians hear about this and they're like, and if you read your Bible at all and you read the words of Jesus, he talks about it constantly. So then some are like, okay, I'm going to serve when it's convenient. So I got a little money left over, got a bonus. I can give something now. I can start serving a little bit. Or I've got a little time. I'm in between all my Netflix series. I haven't started anything new. So I got a little time. So now I can serve a little bit. And so they start serving when it's convenient. And that is a better level than the one before, but it's still not where God wants to take us. The third level is you serve when you're needed, which is really good. Okay, so the community needs me, I'm going to serve. The church needs me, I'm going to serve. But the ultimate level is when you change your entire attitude and the way you think about yourself and you understand that you are a servant. That's the ultimate level. It's the goal it's the place where Jesus wants to move all of us who say that we follow Jesus is to that attitude that says, I am only a servant in this world. That's what I am. I am a son or daughter of God, but I voluntarily serve anywhere he needs me in this world. That's the ultimate goal of where he wants to take all of us. If you've been listening to me at all in this series I just did before this, I talked a lot. We did a series on anxiety. It didn't start out to be a series on anxiety, but it turned into that. And I talked so much about the rise of mental illness in America. And it is at epidemic levels. You have 40 million Americans over the age of 18 who have an anxiety disorder. The youngest generation, almost half of all of the youngest generation live with anxiety most or all of the time of their life. Every day. It is a stunning issue in America. Depression levels, anxiety levels, we are the most medicated society in the history of the world. Yay, we're number one. We didn't want to win in that category, and we're winning in it. We're anxious and depressed. And it's getting worse, and it's not a surprise to me. You want a guaranteed way to mess up your life? There's one. And you know this is true. Guaranteed way to mess up your life is make it all about you. Guaranteed. Make it all about you. Here's how you know this is true. Think about the most selfish people that you know in your life. The people who only think about themselves. It is all about them all the time. And you answer this question for me in your mind. Have you ever thought that they were joyful? I could list lots of people I know who are all about themselves, and I have never met an all about themselves person who knows anything about joy. Ever. It is a guaranteed way, and yet that's the modern American message. It's about you. It's about more for you. Don't you get that? It's about you. You need more stuff. That's the problem with you. If you only had my new thing here, new thing here, you buy this, then you'll be happy, and that's what it's about. It's more for you. More possessions, more money, more accomplishment, more. And we buy into this American mindset, and more, it's really about me. And so all of a sudden we go back up through those levels of serving, back to where we're not even serving, and then we fall apart because it's not what we were created for. We were never created for that. Paul, the Apostle Paul, who wrote so much of the Bible, said, when he was younger, he was very successful in what he was doing. He was climbing the ladder of success. He'd have been a great American because he was winning in life, in everything he set out to do. And then all of a sudden he met Jesus in a dramatic way. And when he met Jesus and Jesus changed his life, he began to follow Jesus, made himself a servant. And by the way, serving Jesus for Paul put him in jail. And he wrote this beautiful book called the Book of Philippians in your Bible, and it's all about joy, sitting in a jail cell. And here's what he said he had learned. He said, what's more? He said, I consider everything in this world, everything is a loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. And here's the key. I consider them rubbish, garbage, so that I may gain Christ. So he's like, if you give me a choice today between everything the world offers or more of Jesus, I choose Jesus. Matter of fact, I choose Jesus so much because this is where joy is and life is and everything real. This is just garbage. It's all it may be pretty garbage, but it's garbage. It'll all be in the dump. Every present you're about to get this week as you celebrate Christmas will someday be in the trash. Every single one. Every single one. Very few things survive 30, 40, 50 years, right? 70 years, 100 years from now, you think you're going to be watching that TV that you're about to get? No shot. No shot. And nobody will want it. Remember all the tube TVs that sat in everybody's yard with a sign free on it? Nobody wants them. That will be our future for everything we're getting this week. It's garbage. It's pretty garbage right now, but make no mistake, it has a future in a dump somewhere. And you think garbage is going to satisfy the longings of your soul? You think garbage is going to make you content or happy or joyful? No shot. And Paul said, I keep it in mind. I know what it is. It's garbage. The big awards, the trophies, more money, more success, it's garbage. And here's the reality. God did not create you to be a garbage collector. And if you make your life about being a garbage collector, then you will know mental illness and anxiety and depression and all of these things because you were made for so much more than that. You were made to bring His love into this world. That's what you were made for. You were made to bring His love into this world. And when Christians start to understand this and they start to follow what Jesus said, Jesus told His followers, the greatest among you, this is who you are, you will be servants. When you start to get that, you start to experience joy. And we just got a fantastic reminder this is a church. I think one of the healthiest signs of a church is when church members start dreaming about how we can serve in our community. I think when church members start doing that, you are on the verge of having a very healthy church. This last few months, we've had some incredible examples of that. When it's all driven by the leaders, or we really aren't talking about serving, we're not going to be healthy. But when church members start dreaming up ideas on how we can serve, oh man, is there power there. So we had just an example of it. For those of you watching on tape, or watching online, you can't see the stage right now. The stage is just, there's so many packages off to the side on both sides, and these aren't all of them. So what happened was, and I'm not very accurate, I should have looked at exactly the timeline, but I didn't think of it. But a couple of weeks ago, we were told about some kids in our community that weren't going to have anything for Christmas. And so we were asked, can we help? And this was 2 Sundays ago. And so 10 kids, no problem, right? 10 kids. So sure enough, we said yes, and the person who was leading all of this, who brought it to our attention, came with these little tags, and there's a Christmas tree off to the side here. You just can't see it. It's just out of the way. And we had all these tags on these little cards on the tree, and everyone was here. We said, would you take one? And so these represent a child who will not have Christmas if we don't do something. And so we took a tag, and I picked one off, and it was a little girl and buying clothes. I put it right back. I'm like, I have no value here at all. And I hunted until I found a little boy, a 10-year-old boy, who wanted Hot Wheels. Now you're talking. I still have my Hot Wheels from when I was a little boy. I still have them. I had a Hot Wheels racetrack where you pulled this lever and it would go round, and when the car got right back, if you pulled the lever again at exactly the right moment, it would go round again. I played endless hours with my Hot Wheels. So I saw a 10-year-old boy wants Hot Wheels, like, yeah, all in. Yeah, I got this. And all the tags went away, and people brought their gifts, and they brought them back. And then, like on Saturday, the following week, so just a week ago Saturday, we hear there are more. We knew about these 10, but there's actually about 28 more or something like that. It's like, and I truthfully was like, I was like, what are we going to do? And we didn't have anything to put out last week, and I didn't know how we could possibly pull something off that fast. For those of you watching online, I know a lot of you are, just to be safe, you don't know how small the crowds are here on Sunday morning, and that's wonderful. We want everyone safe. We want all of you back when this is over. I want you all back. So totally get that, but it's like, how do we announce this? And so we just made an announcement, and we didn't have anything to give away, and we said there's all these extra kids, and then we put it on. We have a Messenger Facebook group. If you're not on that and you want to be, just let me know. And we made an announcement. I think it was like Sunday afternoon last week. And I truthfully was a little bit nervous. Like, this is short notice because all the things have to be back today. And I was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to pull this off? There's a lot of kids. And Tuesday morning, I think it was, a message went out and said, hey, any more of those gifts left? And the person who was running this said, nope, all gone. All the needs are filled by Tuesday morning. Yeah, and now the stage is filling with presents, and this is the church. We bring his love into the lives of people that need it, driven by our members who are our attenders who are like, hey, here's a need. We can do something about this. Now, here's how this ties in. I will not be able to tell you 10 years from now what I got on this Christmas. I know that about myself. Sorry to anyone who might be something really meaningful. I know 10 years from now I won't remember. But I will never forget what it was like to find a race car track for Hot Wheels that was like the one I played with as a kid, and buy a whole bag of Hot Wheels for a kid. And I can't help but picture what it's going to be like for this kid, because I know what it was like for me to wake up on a Christmas morning and unwrap my presents and have something like this to play with. And I will never forget the joy of standing in Walmart buying toy cars for a kid. And every one of you who makes yourself a servant, you know what I'm talking about. Because the greatest joy we're having this year sure isn't coming from COVID, right? You know where it comes from? Serving. To know that our participation with God in this world is making a difference. That's where joy lies. So do you need some more joy? Some of you know you do. Then you have to move to the next level. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, but that's only the first lesson. You see it so well illustrated in the movie, but there's another one that's so powerful to me. I couldn't wait to share this with you. And here's what you need to understand. It's kindness like this, what we're talking about, that really changes the world. And if you watch the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's beautifully illustrated in this movie. It's kindness that changes this world. So Jesper and Klaus begin to deliver toys and toys and toys, and every night it's a toy run, and then they come with this great idea that they're going to do a big event on Christmas. All the kids in the whole community are going to get toys on Christmas. But Jesper comes up with this great idea, really dealing with one of the bullies in the town. He's like, you know who only gets who only gets toys? Good kids. Naughty kids get coal. And so he kind of comes up with it on the fly, and all of a sudden the kids are like, I'm only going to get toys if I'm good? Oh boy. And so off they go, scattering through the town, writing letters to Klaus about all the good they're doing. And so the first one is, I shoveled everybody's sidewalks, and I shoveled all that. So is that good? And then one kid talks about, there's a great scene where these kids, normally, again, these families hate each other. They are constantly at war with each other. And so one of the enemy families, the kids go over to their neighbor, who's one of the enemies, and they pick all of her berries. And rather than destroy them, they bring them in a bucket to the house and run away giggling. And the woman opens it up and sees her enemy's kids have picked all her berries for her. And she's like, well, she doesn't know what to do with that. So she makes jam and brings jam over to that family. And she's stunned. She's like, you're my enemy and you're bringing me jam. And so she bakes a cake out of the jam and brings it back to her enemy. And you see this kind of this kindness war that starts happening. This one guy is building the wall between him and his enemy neighbor, and he falls off the ladder and hurts himself. And the kids see it, so they take him in, they take care of him, they feed him soup. And they said he didn't. He said he didn't like it, but we think he did. And all of a sudden, he goes out there with his hammer and he tears the wall down and builds a huge jungle gym for the kids. And the kids start playing together, and you see change after change after change after change. And so much good. So much good in the town. Matter of fact, Jesper doesn't even realize the change is happening until the school teacher in town says, come with me one night. And she takes him out, and this town, which was dirty and disgusting and falling apart, is being changed as people start serving one another and playing together. And the whole town is changing because there's this kindness revolution that is taking place. And in one of the most profound movie sentences you will ever hear, Klaus says to Jesper, a true selfless act always sparks another. Later he tweaks it a little and says, a true act of goodwill will always spark another act of goodwill. And one of the most profound movie sentences, like I said, you'll ever hear. It so fits our Bible so perfectly. Did you know this? Do you know, Paul wrote in that book to Romans, the book of Romans in the Bible, Paul was writing to Christians in the city of Rome who were being persecuted just because they believed in Jesus. Did you know that? In that time period, it was illegal to be a Christian in Rome. If you were a Christian in Rome, they could confiscate your property, they could make you a slave, they could imprison you, they could torture you, and they could behead you or crucify you. And he wrote to them in the middle of all of this violence going on around them, just like the community. It's like violence, violence, violence. And he laid down a principle that is still so true today and so illustrated in that movie. He said, you want to know how you live in this world? You do not ever let evil overcome you. You overcome evil with good. You do good to those who are evil to you, and you overcome it. Now, that's not how we do it in America, is it? Even American Christianity, we don't know this. We don't do it. You know what we do when someone is unkind to us and someone treats us in an evil way? We complain about it, gossip about it, return to it over and over again, rehearse it in our mind, right? Isn't that what we do? Some of you have been treated very bad this year by someone who should have loved you. You've been hurt so bad, and you've done everything on this list. You've rehearsed it 1,000 times. Imagine what you wish you would have said to them in that moment. You have told people about what the evil was that they did to you or the unkindness that they did to you. And what does God say? God says, stop it. That's not my way. Followers of Jesus do not respond to evil with evil. They overcome it, and you overcome it with good. This is what he says. And what we do when we're actually doing this is we are imitators of God in that moment. If you will choose to respond to evil and unkindness with goodness, you are imitators of God in that moment. You are bringing the very force that God uses. This is what Christians don't understand in America at all. We are so revenge. I mean, most of our action movies are revenge, right? It's like revenge, revenge. We buy into that value. Do you know the very force that God uses when he wants to redeem a human being? When he sees someone going far away from him, being destructive in this world, do you know what God uses to bring them back? Do you know what force he uses? See, we don't even know this in American Christianity. You can go to many churches around the country today, and what they will tell you and answer that question is his anger and his wrath and fear of retribution. That's what God uses. And you hear pastors thundering from the pulpits about the wrath of God's about to come upon all of you. Yeah, you know what he uses when he wants to change a human being's life? Look at what he says. Don't you see how wonderfully kind, tolerant, and patient God is with you? Does it mean nothing to you? Look at the sentence. Can't you see that it is his kindness? His kindness is intended to turn you from your sin. What force does God use in the life of a person who's wandering away from him? Anger? Judgment? Condemnation? What force does he use? It is the force that changes human beings' lives. It's kindness. And you watch the movie, you'll see it. Some of you, though, you're skeptical, I know it. I mean, some of you are sitting here in your head and you're like, really? You want me to be kind to those jerks at school, those jerks at work, those jerks in my family who have hurt me 1,000 times. You want that from me. God, this is your great plan. Be kind, overcome evil with good, right? Does this actually work? You ever heard of this guy? Do you recognize him? Ever watch King of Queens? He was on that. He was on Seinfeld. He was in a bunch of movies. He's had a lot of roles in Hollywood. His name is Patton Oswalt. He has a Twitter account with, and again, I've never tweeted one moment of my life, so I'm just quoting. So if I quote any of this inaccurately, just know this isn't me. So he has 4.4 million followers. So that's apparently cool. So he's got 4.4 million followers on his Twitter account. And he's very politically on one side. And apparently what can happen when you tweet about something is that people can respond. So he tweeted about his political views, and in America, I mean, people are so gracious if you share your political views, right? I mean, just so kind and loving, and it's just like, hey, buddy, yeah, right there with you. Yeah, right. So he had a troll who was one of his followers who just started taking cheap shots at him. And one of the things he said is, I just realized why I was so happy why you died in the movie Blade Trinity, which he'd been in. It's like, oh. But then he goes on and he says this, you shoot basketballs like the sawed-off little man you are. It's one of our favorite things about American culture right now, right? You can go on and anonymously say anything you want to anybody as cruelly as you want it. It is an awful part of our society. So he responded, Patton Oswalt responded with some humor to this, but then he started looking into, the guy who was writing these awful things, his name was Michael Beatty. And so Patton Oswalt started to look into Michael's timeline on his accounts and discovered something. Michael had been in the hospital for 2 weeks battling a serious blood infection called sepsis. Almost killed him. He also had diabetes, and he was not doing well managing his diabetes. Matter of fact, he was so in trouble that he'd actually set up a GoFundMe page and put out just, can you help with the $5,000 medical bills? Which you can imagine how that was going. Wasn't going at all. He was upside down and life wasn't going well. And so Patton Oswalt saw this on Michael Beatty's timeline. And so here's what Patton Oswalt did. Oh man, this dude just attacked me on Twitter, and I joked back, but then I looked at his timeline and he's in a lot of trouble health-wise. I'd be angry too. He's been dealt some bad cards, so let's deal him some good ones. Click and donate just like I'm about to. And he put Michael Beatty's GoFundMe page link on his Twitter account with 4.4 million followers. His political enemy who'd taken these cheap shots at him, completely unnecessary. And then he donated $2,000 himself. $2,000 of the $5,000. And his followers on Twitter were so moved by that, within 24 hours, they gave Michael Beatty $35,000. 24 hours, they gave him $35,000. And here's what he wrote, Michael wrote back. Patton, you have humbled me to the point where I can barely compose my words. You have caused me to take pause and reflect on how harmful words from my mouth could ever result in such an outpouring. Thank you for this. And I will pass some of this on to my cousin who also needs help. Now, a true, selfless act always sparks another, right? You want to overcome evil in this world? Do you know the force that God says you have to use? Overcome it with good. Michael was so impacted by this, he took all of his harsh political comments and deleted all of them. And political opponents are now learning how to be friends. You overcome evil with good. So again, I know some of you, many of you, you follow Jesus. So here's what I'm asking you to think about. Since joy is really found in serving, I'm asking you to pray. And I'm asking you to say to God, God, who do you want me to serve for you now? I'm asking you to pray that. Because that's where joy is. You're never going to find it if you make it about you, ever. You will never find joy there. You want real joy in this world, be what Jesus said we are. We are servants. And ask God for one person to serve this week. And here's the other thing is, some of you, you know right now about somebody in need, the need that we were helping out with before this one was with Feeding Friends in Dodgeville. You know how we found out about that? A church attender told us about the need, and we just stepped up. You may have the next big need that we are supposed to do as a church. It's not going to come from me, it's going to come from us. What are you seeing? What are the needs in our community that are breaking your heart? Did you ever think that God may want us as a church to step up and serve them? I mean, it may be what you see that is the next area where we're supposed to move forward as a church. So pay attention to that. Pay attention. And some of you have someone in your life who's been unkind at some point. I mean, all of us do, don't we? I'm not asking you to go out and give them $35,000 right now. I'm just saying, would you pray and say, God, is there some way you want me to serve this person who hasn't treated me very well? Would you just pray that? Because you know how you overcome evil, right? You overcome it with good. Would you just pray that? Now, if you're just watching today and exploring your faith with us, man, we are, you know, the first selfless act that changes everything is what Jesus did. What Jesus came to do at Christmas time. The Bible says you and I are not like God, right? I mean, that's kind of a duh statement, but it's more serious than it sounds like. I mean, I can do all I want. I can't make a planet. So obviously I'm not like him, right? I'm nothing like him. But more than that, he is a being of pure love. He has never been unloving, ever, and you and I have countless times in our lives. We have been the person at times that other people felt were unkind. We've been the person in our lives that people were like angry at God that he brought us into their lives. Unless you're claiming you've never said anything or done anything wrong. We've been the ones that have hurt others. And when we hurt them, we hurt God because they're created in his image. And we have piled up unkindness in this world. And what incredibly Jesus came to do was to overcome our evil with good. 2,000 years ago, Jesus came and then laid down his life on a cross to pay for all the unkindness we've brought into this world. Let me have you bow your heads as we finish today. Maybe for you, the next step is to let Jesus Christ give you the gift he wants to. This gift of forgiveness and life with him. He loves you so much, he wants to come and make his home inside of you. Did you know that? He wants to live inside of you. And when your time on earth is over, he wants to bring you into his family forever with him. And it's all made possible because of what Jesus did for us. And if you'll let him, if you'll ask for his forgiveness, he will forgive you and start the changes inside of you. It's a simple step of faith. You say something like this to him. Say, Jesus, I have been unkind and unloving. I don't deny it. But I heard that you took my place on a cross. to pay in full for the debt that I've created in this world. So please forgive me. Come make your home inside of me today. I want this gift of forgiveness and life with you. In Jesus' name, amen. As we finish up again, I want to ask you all to grab your connection card out of your program. Just take a moment, and if you're a regular attender, just put your name down. And for those of you watching online, you go to our website at pennielchurchlife.com, and there's a Connect With Us tab, and you can just let us know if you prayed, or if you have something you want us to pray about. There's a place you can write that in there. But if you're a regular attender, just go ahead and put this down. If you prayed and asked Jesus to forgive you, there's a box here, or renew your commitment to him. Let us know about that. And then just drop this in one of the 2 offering boxes back on the back wall where you came in. Thanks so much for coming. Hope to see you again on Christmas Eve.